Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have ProtoCorgi, an adorable bark 'em up. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer Kimono Games, ProtoCorgi released in June of 2023 for the PC via Steam and the Nintendo Switch, which is the version we're looking at today. This title is one that I've been interested in for quite some time. I wishlisted it on Steam back in summer of 2020, so for it to finally come out, I'm just stoked to be able to get my hands on it. And this title does not disappoint. It's a solid recommend from the chef. If you like retro-styled cute-em-ups with adorable art, solid mechanics, and a great soundtrack, then this is one that definitely belongs in your collection, especially at the great price point it's available at. So 100%, this is a recommend from me. So with all that said, let's dive into the game itself and you can kind of see what it has to offer. Also, there is a demo available on Steam, so if you're looking to pick this up on PC, you can try it out first. So this is our main menu. There are a couple different ways we can experience the game in. First off, there's a great training room which allows you to revisit the training so you can brush up on the mechanics, as there are a couple tricky ones, at least to me myself. And there's also the ability to practice all the individual sections of the stages, and they're quite long, so it's not a bad idea to maybe practice. But one of the things that's really intriguing about this one is it actually has a level editor, basically allowing you to make your own ProtoCorgi levels. So this isn't necessarily my cup of tea, but I can bet a lot of people are probably pretty excited to have this kind of a tool in a game. And then we have the main campaign, which is how we're going to go and experience the game itself. Firing things up, we're taken into the main stage, and before I get going, once we actually get into the stage, I'm going to take a quick second to go and note that at least on the Nintendo Switch, the UI is different from whether you're playing it in handheld mode or in docked mode. So in docked mode, we have this bar down here at the bottom of the screen. That's just condensed into a nice handy little information at the top when you're in handheld mode. I really wish there was the option to set that as your default at all times. I quite liked that presentation, but it's just something to note that on the Switch at least, it does handle differently in docked mode versus handheld mode. Alright, so we play the role of the cute cybernetic corgi, Bullet. Bullet has a couple awesome attacks that we can go and use. Initially, we just start out with our main shot, but then throughout the course of the gameplay, that starts to get upgraded. The first upgrade we get, well, we actually get quite a few, all in one go right there. You start off with just your normal shot, but you also have this great bark. So if you single fire your main shot, it'll go and type out the word bark as he fires those letters at the enemy. But I haven't unlocked the ability to do so yet, but it's possible to unlock an option to allow you to edit that to, well, I'm assuming, I would hope that there'd be some limitations, but you can edit it to say whatever you want to type out. So if you wanted to go and have it go wolf instead, as an example, you could do that. So those are our two main attack options, is our shot, which we can go and upgrade, and the bark option. So the bark is unique in that it does have special abilities where it will unlock secret items that your normal shot will not. So through the course of gameplay, especially with these enemies here, we'll find these power-ups, and some of those power-ups will give us options, or they'll give us additional missiles or other weapons that we can equip on Bullet himself. And those shots are basically there's the one shot that's kind of an extension of our base shot, then it becomes a spread, kind of like what you're seeing the options doing here, a laser, and a missile. So real quick, I'm going to stop talking about those mechanics and talk a little bit about the stages. So all the stages have a really good length, and one of the things that I find is really, really special about ProtoCorgi is all the stages also have a secret area. So if you're playing through the game normally, you'll tackle this area this way and move on to this section. However, if you see this big blue fish here and you use your Mega Crush that we got just barely, and I'll get to those like weapons here momentarily, then we unlock the secret area for stage 1. And every stage has a secret area, which, at least in the case of the first couple of ones that I have unlocked, unlock additional mechanics. Anyway, so back to our options. So here's the third weapon that we can equip, and this one is the missile. So it's actually relatively short range unless you lock on to an enemy. So it's a really tricky one to use, but ultimately it's like super satisfying in that you're going to get the most damage if you're willing to go and use this particular short range weapon. So the way that it works is there's a small reticule in front of Bullet himself. If we lock on to enemies, we'll be firing like the missiles at those enemies. Otherwise, they just short range explode directly in front of us. So high risk, high reward kind of weaponry. So one thing that's really neat about our option, and the options can also get that particular weapon as well, but all the weapons on the options aren't as powerful as the versions that Bullet himself equips. One thing that is neat about the options is the range of motion you have around them. So if you stop firing, you can move the options around you, and then when you begin firing again, they'll be locked in the position that they're currently in. So they can range from pointing directly forward to pointing at a 45-degree angle backwards. So there's a lot of coverage that you can prepare with that. It just takes just a bit of time to get them into the right position, and sometimes in a heavy firefight you don't have that option. So I'm going to switch them back to laser just for the moment. And there's also the last weapon I haven't talked about is the missiles. So there's 3 types of missiles. The red missile, which is your straight fire, the blue, which fires at an angle, and then we also have the green laser, which fires up and down. So here we find ourselves fighting our first boss. So if you watch the opening cutscene, this is basically somebody that's a friend of ours that takes off to go and attack the enemy alien forces that kidnapped our creator. But he gets like shocked, like confused, whatnot, and he's like an enemy that's attacking us. He's all about like the justice. So like for example, this like second phase of his, he's firing justice missiles at us. So as you can see there, I'm just getting close enough to go and put in the lock on, and then the missiles will lock on from range and do a heavy amount of damage to him as he fires the justice missiles. So that phase is now done, so we have his final phase, and here we have the justice beam. And yes, in like that's like literally says like Seigi, which is Japanese for justice. So it is literally a beam of justice. So that's just a really fun like bit of like almost an Easter egg that they've went through in there. Since you'd have to like read Japanese to go and actually like tell that's what was being like said there. Minor thing to go and note about what happened there. There are a couple points throughout the course of the game where you've got minor, not even slowdown, but the game will like momentarily freeze. It's always kind of worrisome. There's like the question is it going to go and come back? Is it not? So here I could choose to upgrade the options to the missile, but I don't want all of my firepower to be short range, so I'm going to keep them as a laser for now. And if I have the option later on in this stage, maybe I'll swap them to the spread shot. Each weapon, so for the options, you can level up level 1, level 2, and it's basically having 2 options. But for the other weapons, you can upgrade your missiles from level 1 to level 3, and for your main shot with Bullet himself, you can also upgrade it the same. So there's also 3 special weapons that you can collect throughout the course of the game. The first, what I'm going to refer to as the Mega Crush, is a bomb that blasts the entire stage, and that's what we used in stage 1 to uncover the secret area. This one here will surround Bullet in a ring of flames, so you'll be able to go and deal enemies or damage to enemies around you. And the last one is basically kind of like a shield that encases Bullet, where you can deal enemies or deal damage directly to enemies. So here, we're going to go and show a little bit about the bark shot and how it can like unlock treasure chests that will have fruit, which you've probably been seeing quite a bit of, and wondering what the heck's going on with that. So the fruit have an important part to play in the scoring mechanic of the game overall. So it counts towards the scoring of the game itself. Ooh, red missiles, awesome. So it can go with straight fire. So as a individual score themselves, you'll be scored on the amount of fruit you have, and that's a leaderboard in the game, both like locally and online. But there's also a mechanic that involves the fruit itself. So as we defeat enemies, like here's a mid-boss for this particular stage. If we use the lock-on missile, that's actually a fairly trivial fight. We just lock on to the enemy, make sure our missiles have the range to hit it, and bam, that's 2 phases down, just 1 more phase to finish. The way the stage looks here is pretty neat, where it goes to almost that like Virtual Boy color scheme. At any rate, so when we defeat normal enemies, they'll drop scrap, bones. As they start to accumulate, they even start looking like milk jugs that circle around bullet. Those are basically like score multipliers that we can't collect until we pick up a scoring item, which is usually fruit or food of some sort, but sometimes can be gems as well, and the gems are usually higher items. So these fish that we're coming up on here will actually be an excellent example of that. So if we go to destroy the fish, you see that it leaves behind a gem, and there's these bones that are circling around me. So once I pick up one of these gems, those bones will get like sucked in, and whatever like the amount that I have of those, and you can see those in the scoring below, will be multiplied by the item of the food, or the point value of the food item that we're picking up. And there's a brief moment while all those like scoring items are being sucked into you that you can kind of chain that, so you can collect multiple like scoring items at that multiplier, thus being able to get huge points. So in that case, we got like 500,000 points for using that particular challenge there. And that scoring mechanic, I think, is awesome, going and having the ability to accumulate scrap around you and then strategically collecting items to unlock like those like scoring is awesome. So inadvertently I did die there, but at least on the lower difficulty levels, when you die, all your items are dropped, and if you're quick enough, you can pick up all the items and basically be back at the same power you were. The exception there is, of course, if you had any special weapons. Another thing to note, though, is like the window you have there is relatively short, as your invulnerability is extremely short in this title. There's one more feature that I haven't talked about, and the main mechanic that you start with, and that's the ability to slow your movement down for using, in the case of the default controls, the right trigger. And that brings me to another problem. Both on the PC and on the Switch, it's not possible to rebind your controls if you're looking for a different control scheme. So that's a bit unfortunate, as like the default control scheme isn't my favorite. So I would have really liked to be able to, specifically with the slow itself, just move it to a different button. And there you have it. Those are the base mechanics for ProtoCorgi. There's a couple abilities that we can unlock from from collecting the secret areas. So the first one is the ability to just turn around, but in addition to that, it's also the fighting spirit. So we can use the one button to turn around if we hold it down. However, if we just press that button, then we lose the ability to fire, but we fire this fighting spirit forward, and it punches enemies. It we can go and increase the range of punch, and we can call it back to us with the A button. But we can't use our regular fire when we're using that particular mode. So here we find ourselves at the boss of the second stage. And let's go ahead and talk about the plus and minus flavors. So this game is already one that I solidly recommend, but it's not without its flaws. So, like, the power-ups themselves are relatively scarce after the first couple of stages. So if you're looking to go and change up your loadout past what you're already equipped with, you're not gonna find that it'd be something that's easy to do. So say I wanted to switch from the missile that I'm equipped with right now to the spread, that comes up very, very infrequently. So the options to go and do so are few and far between. Same with the missile power-ups and the other power-ups that we can potentially equip on for our options. We usually get a brief section at the start of stages where we have a few power-ups thrown at us, but in some cases, like the third stage here, that's kind of it. Then there's also the problem with the key binding itself, where you just don't have any ability to change up your controls if you wanted to customize them. And for us, some just preferences or accessibility, it's a little disappointing that that's not included in the game at this point. There is my minor gripe about your invulnerability when you lose a life being so short as well, just being a bit of a problem. But on the plus side, so I love the soundtrack for this game. It's super solid, and it's just kind of fits the really cute pixel art aesthetic that the game has, as well as a bit of kind of a Japanese anime-esque feel going on there. And then you've got all the secrets and unlockables throughout the course of the game. Having every stage have a secret section that you need to uncover throughout your gameplay is really exciting. The first couple times I played through, I didn't even realize that was the case in the first stage. The second stage secret is a little more straightforward, but third stage here, for example, I haven't figured out how to unlock the secret path in this stage either. And then at the end, we just have a super solid shoot 'em up with fun scoring mechanics that, at the end of the day, if you like horizontal scrollers, this is one that I would recommend. The scoring mechanics help keep things fresh, so even though it's a relatively fixed design, you'll be able to come back and aim for high scores, maybe try a different a loadout of weapons, and you can have a different experience with it, and I really appreciate that. So there we have it. ProtoCorgi served up for your enjoyment, a solid recommend from the chef. Well, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.